questions today will be screened by league members Annette Holcomb and Cindy Madigan, and they're going to be screened for legibility and clarity and to avoid duplication. Each candidate will be asked to respond to the same question during the debate portion. For this debate, candidates rolled the dice, and the high roller had the choice of going first with their opening statement or having the last closing statement. This morning, for this debate, we will have candidate Mutchler going first with his opening statement, and then it will be candidate Hansen making his opening statement. And so with the rules covered, let's get started. Timers, are you ready? Okay, candidate Mutchler.
I am John Mutchler, Mayor of Ferndale, and we are proud of this city. Ferndale is healthy and thriving. We are creating good jobs. Businesses are locating here and others expanding. We are gaining new neighbors and friends as people discover what we already know. Ferndale is a great place to live. We've become one of the safest cities in Washington State. Crime rates plummeting to a third of what they were just 12 years ago. And I am proud to say that our city has never seen more civic engagement, with a record 23 citizens filing for public office in May. We've appointed a record number of teenagers to boards and commissions, including the establishment of the Ferndale Civic Youth Council, made up of some 20 high school leaders who walk through, debate, and vote on the same business that's on council's agenda. We've successfully worked with our state legislators to get funds to add beautiful ADA sidewalks to Pioneer Park, help with our new sewer plant, and another $22 million in grants to help build the Thornton to I-5 connection. Affordable housing, I am pleased to say that Ferndale is leading the way to tackle this challenge. Under our public works leadership, Ferndale drilled and discovered a new source of water, an aquifer that will soon supply our water independence for decades. We created a Parks and Recreation office that now organizes a record number of year-round activities and events at low or no cost, attended by thousands. Finally, I'm especially proud that we as a city have honored two of our own World War II POW heroes, Joe Mosher and Dick Stone, by naming 2 streets after them to help us to honor the greatest generation. Thank you, Lead, for hosting this event. I am John Mutchler, and I hope that you will visit my website, www.reelectjohn, that's JON.com. And thank you.
And candidate Hansen.
Good morning. My name is Greg Hansen, and I'm campaigning to be the next mayor of Ferndale. I love this community. It's been my home for 50 years. 4 years ago, I ran for council because I truly believe that government can be a force for good in people's lives, especially local government. And over the last 4 years, I've learned a lot about our city government, but even more, I've learned a lot about the amazing people who work tirelessly in our community. Proud, caring, hardworking, Ferndale-friendly people. These are important times for Ferndale. Our city is growing fast, and important projects are well underway in our city. Projects that will likely change Ferndale forever. Now, more than ever, Ferndale deserves a choice in leadership that is authentic, humble, and collaborative. I do not want to focus on the petty and vindictive politics of the past that we've been experiencing lately, but rather I want to focus on Ferndale's bright and prosperous future. A future Ferndale that continues to grow, but in a sustainable and responsible way, with a variety of affordable and workforce housing that provides options for individuals and families to become part of our friendly and thriving community. I want a Ferndale with a vibrant downtown, with shops and restaurants and businesses that give people a reason to come downtown, a reason to spend their time and spend their money here, supporting our community, our local businesses. I want to keep that money here in our community. And finally, I want a Ferndale community that works for everyone. A Ferndale that understands that our diversity is our strength. Because when we respect and consider the opinions, identities, and backgrounds within our community, we make decisions that enable everyone to thrive. My background in hospitality management, creating a customer service culture, and my 13 years teaching at Whatcom Community College, teaching others to thrive in the business world, give me the tools and experience needed to be the next mayor of Ferndale. I humbly ask for your vote. Greg Hansen for Ferndale Mayor.
Thank you both. The first question will start with candidate Hansen. If you were given a $1 million grant for the city, what would you use it for and why?
If I was given a $1 million grant for the city, I mean, there's a lot of things that we could do. We could put that towards one of our major infrastructure projects to offset the cost to citizens. We could put that towards parks or events. But I think For me, what I would do is I would start a loan fund for downtown businesses and entrepreneurs, a fund that could provide low interest loans for businesses that are trying to do renovations or do a startup or simply trying to open. You know, in a lot of cases, banks won't provide the small loans needed that small businesses need in order to make the changes to expand or even to get open. And so I think that you know, using $1 million for that actually would pay off dividends over and over and over again for our city.
Candidate Mutchler.
I learned from our successful library capital project that sometimes a gift can be parlayed or multiplied into larger amounts. In that case, it was an original $1 million gift that became almost $5 million to build the library. There are a number of capital projects that would be more on the necessary side and some are more fun. My favorite is one I've always been intrigued with is a footbridge that would connect two great iconic parks. Pioneer Park in Ferndale with our county's Hovander Park. We do have a back of the napkin estimate of something like that, which would be a fabulous regional attraction as well as a promotion of health and walking and things like that. It's about a $5 million project, but I've again learned that you can take $1 million and you can motivate the community to give and participate in something much bigger.
And this question will begin with candidate Mutchler. Ferndale is one of the most diverse cities in the county. What are your plans to ensure the voices of all residents are heard on policy matters?
Well, my personal conviction and belief is that we should choose the best people to participate in our government, boards and commissions, and even staff. I was looking at the letterhead of our council agenda, and women have had a hard time advancing in various key positions, but I noticed that half of my executive team, 4 of 8 members, if we include our city attorney, which is part of our team, are women. We simply choose the best, and it happens that happens to be that half of them are women. On our various boards, commissions, I've made a concerted effort to appoint and include people from all sorts of backgrounds, but mostly different opinions, having different values and different convictions. I think we need to be, I know we need to be an inclusive city so that everybody feels safe and welcome and able to participate here. Thank you.
And candidate Hansen.
You know, I think one of the first things that I would want to do is make sure that we move forward with the ideas around televising our public meetings, especially the city council meetings, so that the public actually has a chance to see what's going on. But beyond that, I think that it's important that the city hold regular public meetings where we open up the pavilion, we bring city staff and electeds to the pavilion, and we simply offer the opportunity to hear their voices. You know, if you look around, there are not a lot of people here. I think that you know the idea that you know, people aren't participating, and so I you know, looking for ways to make sure that they have an opportunity to engage with their elected officials is critical for our democracy.
This one will begin with candidate Hansen. Universally, it is said that the community wants clean air and water, a strong economy, great schools, and safe communities. What distinguishes you from your opponent in reaching these goals, in your plans to reach these goals?
I'm not sure what my opponent thinks about these sorts of things. You know, what I would say is that you know, ideas around you know, environmental sustainability have been, you know, part of my background for my entire life, and so I think that the most important thing is that we make sure that we have opportunities for our citizens to voice their ideas and their opinions, but then also have a chance to participate in the decisions that the government is making going forward.
Mr. Candidate Mutchler.
I have 3 priorities in my decision-making as the city's executive. At the top is safety, the second is the environment, and the third is the pocketbook of the citizens as it's expressed in the city budget. We make unpopular decisions as the city's executive. I would say that most of my phone calls are not happy calls from people that are not happy with the enforcement of code, and that code usually has to do with either safety or with the environment. An easy one that we all lived through a year ago was enforcing the fire code as it related to nightclubs. That was popular with nobody. That wasn't popular with the city, with the council, and certainly with the citizens, but we simply will not compromise on safety and the environment, and our record shows that and will continue to show that.
And this question will begin with candidate Mutchler. Moral leadership is an important part of a mayor's responsibility. What is your view and your position on the issue of white supremacy in our community, as was encountered in Ferndale recently, and what strategies would you propose for dealing with white supremacy?
I was pleased that the entire city came together, staff, the elected officials, and the public, and said, we have zero tolerance, no tolerance for racism, bigotry, white supremacy. Nobody flinched to say, hell no, to these types of messages and people coming to our Ferndale. I would like to think, and I actually do believe, based on what I know, this is an outside effort to come in and see if they can gain some kind of foothold. We said no to that, and we will continue to stand up to stuff like that. It sickens me to think that it even tried to stick its camel's nose under the tent here in Ferndale, and I think Councilmember Hansen and I completely agree upon that. There's absolutely no room for bigotry and racism in the city of Ferndale.
And candidate Hansen.
I agree. Hate has no home here in Ferndale. And I think that we have to have a no tolerance policy towards that. But I think that it's important that everybody in Ferndale call that out when they see it. And in the instances when we've seen these individuals come back to our community, it was dealt with quickly and swiftly. But I think beyond that, the public has been asking and calling for more discussion, more opportunities to talk about what that means, to talk about what it means to be a plural society, and talk about ways that we can move forward as a community, and make sure that hate never has a home here in Ferndale.
And this question will begin with candidate Hansen. There are those who believe that Ferndale law enforcement faces a crisis. Ferndale Police Department is now the 5th lowest paid law enforcement agency in Whatcom County. Ferndale could potentially lose trained officers to other agencies that are recruiting them. What is your plan to make sure that Ferndale does not lose police officers to other agencies?
Well, this is clearly a significant issue for the city of Ferndale going forward, and we've spent quite a bit of time talking about the circumstances that we find ourselves in here in Ferndale. And I think one of the biggest things is that we need to show our respect and towards the Ferndale police officers by negotiating fairly with their next contract and making sure that they're not just paid well, but they are one of the best paid police forces in Whatcom County. I mean, that's how we're going to end up attracting officers from other agencies. And so not only do we need to make sure that they're paid well, they have the equipment, they have the training, and they have the leadership that they need in order to do what many would think is one of the most thankless jobs in the community. This is a difficult job. We need to make sure that they're well compensated.
And candidate Mutchler.
This is why I love the League of Women Voters. You folks do your homework. You folks have studied. This issue alone took up most of my week with working with staff. The city of Ferndale made a decision about 10 years ago, maybe a little less than that, under its previous mayor, to be competitive with salaries of police officers, and it worked. And I'm happy to say under this term, we have not, to date, lost a single officer through attrition. That's going to probably change as we have fallen behind. We're now the 5th highest paid jurisdiction. Quite simply, we're going to have to either raise compensation or else provide some other incentives and other tangible items that will be attractive to a police officer. The most important thing that we did in the last 10 years to build a new state-of-the-art police station, making it a desirable place to work. We will keep good cops. We've always had good cops. They are one of the big reasons for our safety, success, and that will continue.
And we'll begin this question with candidate Mutchler, and I'd like for both of you to be very specific in your answers. What are your specific plans for meeting water supply needs for the city, and how will any improvements be financed with your plan?
We'll start with financing. Water supply must be met through a combination of rates and hookup fees. When a builder comes in and wants to connect to our water and sewer, they pay a connection fee. Currently, they are the highest in Whatcom County. The rest of it's made up by the rates that the citizens pay. We are currently going through a rate study and application, which will be probably completed next month, in order to have a fair rate plan for all citizens. We need to have a long-term supply of water, which is why the city dug a new well this last year, about a year and a half ago. It's a brand new, untouched aquifer that's about 1,037 feet below the surface. We have tested it, we've run it, we are confident that it will help supply the water needs of our city for a long time. So we'll bring that online shortly, see how it does, and be able to move forward from there.
And candidate Hansen.
There's not a lot that I can add to what Mr. Mutchler has already said. We are doing our homework. We've hired an accounting firm to study the enterprise funds, that business within the city that provides water for our citizens, to make sure that the rates that we're charging both cover our costs and our future needs. And so, that study is well underway, and we're in the process of trying to decide what those new rates will look like. But your rates will go up ever so slightly. But I think that it's important that any rate increases are fair and balanced, that they not only meet the needs of the system, but also make sure that it's fair to every ratepayer. We do have a new source of water that we hope to have online within the next year or so, and it's hoped that will provide water for at least the next generation.
And this will a challenge, please, and thank you.
I never got to use my challenge the last night. This really isn't a challenge to Councilmember Hansen. Just to add on to that, we do, like a lot of cities do, we practice summer conservation. That was new for Ferndale. We weren't used to being told you need to cut back on the water usage, you need to follow a schedule. I'd like to report that we did that this summer. Nobody was fined, nobody lost any money, everybody saved money, and the city had plenty of water this summer. So I want to commend the city of Ferndale to responding to something that wasn't especially popular, but it did work. And candidate Hansen.
That's a great point. And I would also point out that through the rate studies with water, for example, we are also planning to do away with we're planning to bring back the summer sewer discount. For those people who irrigate and have flowers and gardens, you'll no longer be charged for sewer for the water that you're putting into your yard.
And this will begin with candidate Hansen. What do you anticipate will be the impacts on the city of the Lummi Salish Village development on Slater Road, and what is your plan for dealing with these impacts?
Well, I think the most significant impacts are going to be, first and foremost to the infrastructure out along Slater Road, and we do have funds coming from the Department of Transportation to build full roundabouts at those intersections out there that'll help with the traffic flow and the increased traffic that project will bring. But I think the city has to really focus on how that's going to impact police service, fire service potentially, as well as water and sewer that any water and sewer that they might be legally able to ask the city for. And so I think that it's important that the city make long-range plans, knowing that these impacts are coming.
And candidate Mutchler.
I can't possibly in 30 seconds explain the challenges that have come about working with this great group of people called Lummi Nation, the legal challenges particularly, but I think we've gotten there. A huge accomplishment for this council and this mayor was the vacating of Cope Road. That was, you'd think, would be really easy. It simply wasn't easy, but that has been released to them so they can fully develop the project, which is something I welcome. A court case recently determined that the city of Ferndale will indeed collect its share of sales tax on any retail development on that property. Therefore, if they were to put in some restaurants or a hotel or anything like that, or even perhaps a mall of sorts, City of Ferndale currently would be collecting and receiving its share of sales tax, which is a great benefit of the city. The most important part of that whole equation is the relationship that we have with the tribe, that relationship is vibrant and strong, which it has been over this term.
And this one will begin with candidate Mutchler. What is your position regarding the Catalyst program for economic development to encourage affordable housing and new business in the core of the city? And what specific other ideas do you have for invigorating the city core?
Greg and I both supported the Catalyst, and it'll probably take the two of us to explain it, but at the end of the day, we are not giving money to developers to build. We're taking part of the city, the downtown core, which has not been generating revenues for the city. It's pretty much looked the same since about the time Greg was born. We believe that the Catalyst program provides some economic incentives for businesses to develop or to bring in multifamily housing, that's condos and apartments, as well as some commercial and some retail, by simply not charging certain fees. It's working by the fact that we've had 4 significant projects now step forward wanting to build and develop in the downtown core. And I think Councilmember Hansen is part of a commission that's been appointed by the council and by the mayor to pick those best Catalyst programs, which will be in the downtown core. This is not a giveaway. This is an investment in our downtown.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, please, candidate Hansen.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things that if you spend any time here in Ferndale, you realize that there has been no significant investment in the downtown core on either side of Main Street in 25 to 30 years. And so the city has some very limited ability to move the dial on any of that. There's not a lot that the city can do. And so the Catalyst program is one of those few things where what we can do to kind of offset the costs of development in that downtown core. I look at this as a public-private partnership. The city gives up a little bit of something, the citizens give up a little bit of something, and the developers give up a little bit of something. But in the end, what we get is something that benefits everybody. And the belief is that this investment in the downtown core will catalyze additional investment that won't have to have incentives. And bringing population and businesses to that downtown core creates the vibrancy that we're looking for.
And candidate Hansen, Ferndale has historically been known as one of the more affordable cities in our county, but prices have increased. As mayor, how would you preserve and increase affordable housing? And please be specific about the strategies that you propose.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I
please?
can. Ferndale has been known as one of the more affordable cities in our county, for housing, but prices have increased. As mayor, how would you preserve and increase affordable housing? And please be specific about the strategies that you would propose.
Well, I think that affordable housing has been a hot issue in our community for a little while. When the price of a home in Ferndale is pushing $380,000, it's hard to imagine that as affordable housing. And I think that we're really heavily impacted by what's happening in Bellingham as well. And so I think that again, there aren't a lot of levers that the city can move in order to drive affordable housing. But I think that doing things like the multifamily tax discount that we passed recently, where it encourages developers to develop multifamily housing and provides 8 years of property tax relief in an effort to try to encourage developers to build housing that workforce and new families can afford so that they can move to our vibrant city.
And candidate Mutchler.
The BIA recently published an article in the Herald commending Ferndale's ADA, accessory dwelling unit, mother-in-law suites ordinance as being one of the best models in the county, something that's been a struggle for Bellingham. Most of us, at least I have, live in apartments before we get our own home. So Ferndale has been apartment friendly. I'm excited about that. They're nice places. They kind of provide that first home for people. Ferndale is the capital of self-help homes, and if you don't know what that is, look it up. Whatcom Self-Help. These are 10 homes a year that are built in Ferndale by the owners, the future owners, and those homes, the mortgages on those homes, the mortgage payment comes in much less than the rent of an apartment. We've also done some things that make it easier to build on funny sized lots and pieces of property, more flexibility so that developers can build more homes, creating more inventory and putting a downward pressure on the price of homes.
And beginning with candidate Mutchler, as mayor, please explain what you believe the city police department's relationship with ICE should be and why. Please address whether the local ICE detention facility plays a role in that relationship.
I believe that both agencies need to be honored and respected and followed. I occasionally do ride-alongs with our officers, and one time we had a criminal was escaping and had been discovered in a car. I was with the officer that was chasing him, and before the evening was over, we had Border Patrol, we had the city of Ferndale, we had the city of Bellingham, we had Whatcom County, we had the dogs out. Everybody works together, and so both jurisdictions are expected to work cautiously and carefully with each other. It is not the job of Ferndale to go out looking for people that may have some kind of immigration issue. That is not our responsibility, and that is not our job. But we do work together. Those two agencies are expected to work together and respect each other's mission and jurisdiction.
And candidate Hansen.
So on this, I think I agree with Mr. Mutchler. I don't believe that it's in Ferndale's best interest to become a sanctuary city, the root of that question. I think, though, that these are decisions that are important to leave to the chief of police as well, because whether we are or are not, this is something that impacts the police, the chief's ability to do his job. We do live in a close proximity to the border, and while we have an ICE detention center here in Ferndale, that's a function of being close to the border, and so I think that it's important. These are important decisions that are really best left to the chief. That impacts him significantly.
And beginning with candidate Hansen, how will you develop a relationship with our state legislators as mayor, and which issues would you prioritize?
I think that I've already started building relationships with our state legislators or state legislators, and we'll continue to do that. I think that more than anything, building those strong relationships gives us access to not only the funding that we rely on at times from the state, but also to help us move forward initiatives related to even things like affordable housing, and we're able to get their help with moving forward with some of those sorts of ideas. We've got a great lobbyist that's working with our legislators in Olympia, and I would certainly continue to work with him and to develop much stronger ties with all of our local representatives.
And candidate Mutchler.
I have been to Olympia more times than I wish to confess or count, but I think it has paid off for the city of Ferndale. $19 million for our Thornton project. We partner with the Lummi Nation for another $21 million for improvements at Slater. We went down this year, worked with both of our representatives from both parties to get $1 million for our wastewater treatment plant. And previously to that, we about $200,000, maybe a little less than that, for our ADU, our handicap, Americans with Disabilities Act sidewalks in our beautiful Pioneer Park. Olympia has to be part of the mayor's life. It's just a matter of fact. We are being taxed here in Ferndale. Those taxes are sent to Olympia. It's a funny game, but we need to go down there and get our share back. And we have succeeded with that with a little bit of political skill, just a great story, a great narrative. But most importantly, it's a good relationship that this mayor has developed and cultivated with the legislators.
And beginning with candidate Mutchler, what do you anticipate to be the impacts of the new Thornton Road overpass? And what are your strategies, be specific please, for dealing with those impacts?
Well, the first impact is for us not to do anything big right now until that project's completed. We weekly get suggestions and ideas to fix this road, add a light here, put a roundabout here. It's prudent for us to hold tight, wait for that road to be completed, and then we'll see what it does to traffic patterns and we'll make appropriate changes. This is a big deal for us with a lot of people that should get credit for. I know that councils have been dreaming for this connection for 30 years. It's going to happen. We've already started with the utility work. We go out to bid in a couple of months here, and that project will be a big deal. Mostly people that live in the upper northwest part of the city will now have a new way out of town, making it easier for the other parts of the city to get in and out of the city of Ferndale, say on Main Street. It will drastically change our city. How much? We'll wait and see.
And candidate Hansen.
Yeah, I agree with much what Mr. Mutchler has said. I think one of the biggest things that we have to think about is that when we redo Thornton Street, that's also going to have some pretty significant impacts up the street, especially in front of Skyline Elementary School and through those neighborhoods that have previously lived in what is a pretty quiet part of town. That's going to change for those neighbors. But I think that it creates an important back door to Ferndale that will impact what we see for traffic in downtown. And I also agree that we need to hold back and wait to see how the downtown Ferndale traffic changes because of Thornton Street. But once we have Thornton Street up and going, I think it's important that we do a study of downtown and revise our Main Street plan going forward, given the new normal after Thornton Street.
And this is going to be our last question, but it's going to be one that I think you're both going to enjoy answering. And we'll start with candidate Hansen. And what, in your opinion, makes Ferndale a great place to live?
Wow, that is a great question. Like I said, I love this community. I think that one of the things that makes this a great place to live is our parks and our recreation programs and the big community events that we do. And I'm sure many of you have been to Pioneer Days or to the Street Festival. And when we gather as a community, I think that's when we really shine as a community. This is a really amazing place with fantastic people. And so being a part of those sorts of big events, I think, is what makes Ferndale really a great and unique community. And as mayor, I will continue to encourage those organizations to continue with those events and expand to have more and more community events where we can gather as a community and build community.
Mr. Mutchler.
I like the vibrancy, the thrivingness, the health of our city. We're growing. Some people think too fast. The numbers don't bear that out. We're growing at a nice, steady pace of less than 3% a year. I like the fact that we are close to everything without being in the middle of everything. We're close to a beautiful mountain. We're close to the water and some beautiful islands, to two really great cities. 3 if we count Bellingham, which is certainly a great city, but Vancouver and Seattle. And we have just one of our great iconic events. I think is such a great part of Ferndale, Ski to Sea, and the city of Ferndale is a host of part of that event. Certainly the people that live here, the school district, the school system, our city needs to be commended that 71% of our city voted for the new high school. This is our way of saying that we're not going to be a third-rate city. We're going to have a first-class high school because we want to be a first-class city, which is what we are and which is what we'll stay.
And gentlemen, it is now time for your closing statement, and this will begin with Mr. Mutchler. Pardon me?
1 minute.
now that we know what we're doing. There we go.
4 of the largest projects are upon us, and a brand new council takes seat on January 1st. Experienced leadership at City Hall is a must. A new well coming online, the replacement of an antiquated wastewater treatment plant, breaking ground on the Thornton to I-5 connection, and 4th, a new high school, the largest project ever undertaken in our city. And I pledge to work with our school officials to see that our new school is built on time and within budget. This mayor has unquestioned integrity and experience, a full term as mayor, 2 terms on the city council, a member of the Whatcom County Charter Review Commission, an active member of the Ferndale Chamber of Commerce, an Old Settlers trustee, and a member of the Commission Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. I am John Mutchler. Thank you for entrusting me with 4 years as your city's chief executive. We've just begun.
Mr. Hansen.
My name is Greg Hansen, and I'm Ferndale made. I'm a Ferndale High School graduate, go Golden Eagles. I'm a Western Washington University graduate with degrees in economics and political science, history, and education. My 20 years in the hospitality industry, managing in a people-centric industry, creating a customer service-focused culture, managing budgets and strategic planning. My 13 years teaching hospitality management at Whatcom Community College, mentoring and teaching individuals the skills and knowledge to be successful in the business world. And my 4 years on City Council, wrestling with Ferndale's challenges and making decisions on behalf of everyone in our community. All of this gives me the skills, knowledge, and background to be Ferndale's mayor, Ferndale's chief executive. Now, more than ever, Ferndale needs leadership that's authentic, engaged, thoughtful, humble, and collaborative. I humbly ask for your vote. Vote today. Vote for me, Greg Hansen, for Ferndale mayor.
Thank you, and please join me in thanking both candidates.